Hi everyone, my name is Peter, and I'm the product leader for the new Roland TR-1000 Rhythm Creator. Built from the ground up with input from working artists, it combines analog circuitry, cutting-edge digital sound engines, deep sampling, flexible sequencing, and powerful live performance tools all in one instrument. This is Roland's most advanced rhythm machine to date, designed for producers and performers looking for the highest expression of sound. Let's dive into the sound engine. The TR-1000 is our first drum machine in over 40 years to use analog sounds. We've taken our most coveted analog circuits from the 808 and the 909 and have given them new life by adding parameters, expanding ranges, and improving the dynamics overall. We didn't want to simply make a new analog drum machine, we wanted to make something evolutionary. So we used our digital sound engines to expose new sides to our sounds. The digital voices offer a wide range of ACB, FM, and PCM tones. You might ask, are the 808 and 909 ACB models in there as well? They are, but not as you may expect. We spent the last few years cracking open and digitally circuit bending our 808 and 909 ACB models. These new models provide deep and creative percussion synthesis, mutating those same timeless sounds into something new. The TR-1000 features a comprehensive sampling engine, which supports stereo recording, non-destructive sample chopping, and time stretching for loops and one-shots. You can also record external sounds or resample internally with specialized modes for one-shots and tempo-synced loops. There's non-destructive sample slicing with up to 16 slices per instrument, allowing each slice to have its own settings for things like pitch and time stretch. I have this drum loop here. I quite like the way it sounds, but I want to chop it up into different beats. So I'll turn on slice, and I can trigger those independently. Each slice can have its own set of settings. So let's say I want to take slice 7, turn on time stretching for it, and make the speed playback be quite slow, something a little bit more extreme. All the other slices will maintain their normal settings except for slice 7. Now, of course, you can record all of this into the sequencer. In addition to shipping with thousands of samples, 48 out of the 64GB hard drive is dedicated for user storage. The TR-1000 contains a huge suite of sound design tools. Each instrument comes with its own sound generator, filter, amplifier, compressor, modulation, and effects section. Tracks 1 through 4 are layer tracks, and they combine a variety of sound types together, whether it's an analog bass drum layered with an FM percussion voice, or 2 independent drum loops playing at the same time. Let's take a listen to this pattern. Tracks 1 through 4 use the layer track system. My bass drum has 2 sounds layered on top of each other. It uses a 707 bass drum on layer A and an analog 808 kick drum on layer B. I can mix between those two using the mix knob here. And I can turn on an amplitude envelope, which will shape my 808 bass drum and soften the attack, making room for the 707 to pop through. So on track 4, I have an open and a closed conga sound. So this is what layer A sounds like, and this is what layer B sounds like. If I go to Inst Play, I can hear both of them being played at the same time, but if I want to sequence them individually, I can do that by holding the layer button and putting some notes on the step keys. The Analog Master Effects section combines a stereo analog filter and a stereo drive circuit. In this example, I'm taking advantage of just the drive circuit, and I'm using it as more of a finalizer. I can bypass it, and it sounds good, but it sounds pretty clean. Turn it back on, and I get that characteristic type of warmth brought into the mix. Let's jump into the sequencer. The TR-1000 features a classic TR step sequencer interface with 16 step keys, real-time recording, and several tools for creating your own pocket and making your patterns sound more organic and natural. We've improved the sequencing by breaking the rigidity of the classic TR machines by using micro-timing, not just in steps, but in tracks. Adjusting the track timing will push or pull the track's rhythm ahead or behind the beat. Got this pattern that makes use of this drum loop right here. I really like it. It definitely feels super natural, but it's not recorded to a click. And it definitely has a loose kind of feeling, so it's going to combat the hard quantized nature of the grid. So first I'll start with my hand claps, which I know I want to push a little bit ahead of the beat, so I'll adjust the start time of that here. Snares, I know I want it a little bit behind the beat. If I isolate those, I hear I'm forming a nice pocket there. And the final piece of this is this shaker pattern, which I quite like the rhythm of, but it's definitely still way too rigid. So one of the things that the TR-1000 does is individual shuffle per track. So I can shuffle just the shaker without affecting any of the other tracks and start to blend it into that drum loop a little bit. And I'm also gonna push that a little bit behind the beat as well. Start to match the looseness of that drum loop. In addition to these new micro-timing features, each track can be set with its own length, playback direction, rotation, and shuffle. The panel knobs can also be automated smoothly in real time or per step. There's a few tracks that I want to experiment with. On the high tom, there's the shaker sound. If I look at the track settings, I can change things like the rotation of the pattern, the start time, the shuffle, and also the direction. So I'll try playing the shaker pattern backwards, or like a pendulum, alternating different hits. And there's also a few random modes that I think add a lot of interesting unpredictability to the track's playback. There's a few other percussion instruments here, like on the rimshot track. I'll experiment with the rotate parameter, which will shift the playback position forwards or backwards. And I can monitor what the new sequence is using the panel LEDs, so you can see the playback is in red for the rotated position. The design of the TR-1000 intentionally put a ton of knobs on the panel because a TR should feel like an instrument and not a computer. Each knob in the instrument section is technically a macrocontroller, meaning it can be assigned to any parameter in the instrument. There are multiple destinations, each with their own custom range. The Morph Fader is a performance tool which can be mapped to combinations of panel knobs, each with their own amount. It's incredibly useful whether it's controlling buildups and transitions, or sonic mayhem. Play modes change the function of the step keys, from triggering slices in real time to triggering 16 levels of velocity. The TR-1000 features a high-grade aluminum panel, steel chassis, and universal internal power supply. The I/O section on the TR-1000 is massive. It features individual quarter-inch outputs, there's a sub-output for the analog effects, there is a dual mono or stereo input for external signals, and there's a dedicated headphone output with its own amplifier. There is a whole host of voltage connections for CV and trigger integration. Let's check that out. One of my favorite things about the voltage section is using the trigger input. This trigger input can be set to a few different modes, one of which is clock, which will advance the sequencer one step at a time based off of the incoming voltage. In this example, I have it set up to play only one step, so it's going to be triggering step 1 across all the tracks every time it gets an LFO pulse. If you control the rate of the LFO on the modular side, you get this really cool floating tempo effect that treats the TR-1000 like a drum synthesizer, since you're doing the sequencing on the Eurorack side. The MIDI section is also fully featured. There's a MIDI input and there's 2 MIDI outputs, of which can be configured to DIN sync. There's also a hard through connection as well, so you get no latency from the timing signal coming into the MIDI import. There's a foot pedal input, which is compatible for switches or expression. You can use it for controlling things like start and stop, or assigning the expression pedal to one of the panel knobs. The USB-A port supports USB storage and MIDI devices. You can use it to import and export samples, in addition to projects. The TR-1000 connects to your computer using USB-C. The TR-1000 app manages the built-in content and controls all internal parameters, as well as supporting sample import and firmware updating. The TR-1000 is not just a hybrid analog and digital drum machine. It's a creative platform designed to be at the heart of studios, live acts, and inspired projects.